Howdy, and welcome to the Lost Rider podcast. It's an honor and privilege to address you in the capacity of an interviewer, reporter, and media member. Too many modern media outlets have forgone the integrity and responsibility required of credible information sources. What you will receive here are straightforward discussions with legislators, agency leaders, biologists, engineers, doctors, and countless other experts that have the answers to questions often circulated as kitchen table issues. The title Lost Rider may be thought of literally as well as in the metaphorical sense. While there has been the instance that I was momentarily a little turned around at night in a wilderness area, the idea of being a lost rider in life, well, that fits most folks at some time. These renderings are coming to you in the form of the 25-year-old radio program, The News from the Camp House. It still airs every Saturday morning at 6:30 a.m. Central Time on KULM 98.3 FM out of Columbus, Texas. The original intent was to relate outdoor topics to the general public. Immediately, it was found that all issues are relatable to the outdoors and that people are people. They all play a role and they all have a vested interest. It's this program's desire to answer common questions about how the world works, how it will operate in the future, and what's the holdup? So please listen, enjoy, and never hesitate to contact us with more questions and feedback. Good morning and welcome to this weekend's edition of News from the Camp House, the listening post of the Texas Sportsman Association. This is Herman Brune and we're here this weekend. Well, wait a minute. This weekend's edition is also brought to us by the Shaw's Bend Social Club. Shaw's Bend Social Club is a country club for folks who don't have a country club. All right, I tell you what, we've got a special guest this weekend, Dr. Mary Bowden, down here in Houston. She was at the forefront of a little pushback on the pandemic from familiar with the frontline doctors, the doctors who signed the Great Barrington Declaration. She's familiar with all this. She was one of the first doctors that actually treated people during the pandemic, and she had a lot of problems because of that. And I'm going to let her tell her story a little bit. And what we've always said is the biggest tragedy from all this, as far as a social society viewpoint, has been nobody learned anything. This has been the tragedy. We got over it. Everybody wanted to get so far away from it. They were so sick of it. They don't even want to talk about it. But now we have to, because we don't want it to happen again. And the tragedy is you have to learn from these instances. Dr. Bowden, how are you this morning?
I'm great, Herman. Thank you so much for having me. And I love what you just said about we cannot move on. And everybody wants to move on. We're all tired of talking about COVID. But it was the largest public health event in our lifetime. And unfortunately, the people holding the big microphones don't really want to talk about it. And so I appreciate you bringing me on so that we can keep the narrative alive.
All right. You had problems. Tell my listeners, what did you initially do?
So I'm an ear, nose, and throat doctor, a solo practitioner. And I basically answered a need. I had, as ENT, I see patients who come in with respiratory tract infections very often. And so patients came to me with COVID, and I just did what I'm trained to do, and I tried to help them. And initially, I used hydroxychloroquine, but of course, as soon as President Trump came out and said, that's a possibility, the Texas State Board of Pharmacy actually shut it down. We were not allowed to prescribe it for COVID. And that was actually stiffer than Ivermectin. It was just completely shut down. So I just put hydroxychloroquine on the back burner, and I used common sense. I used breathing treatments, steroids, antibiotics, and people did well. But I didn't have a lot of demand for treatment until I started offering monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies worked great. I could get as many doses as I wanted, and they'd show up at my office the next day. And we were just, treating people. We didn't restrict anybody. We just said, come one, come all. But then the government took over distribution of monoclonal antibodies, so they became harder and harder to get. And that's when I turned to ivermectin. And then, I was actually a little bit nervous about ivermectin because monoclonal antibodies worked so well. So I wasn't sure ivermectin would really live up to the hype. But what I found is it did work. During the pandemic, I ended up treating over 6,000 COVID patients, and everybody that got early treatment alive and well. But in the process of doing that, I became vocal on social media, and they basically, tried to shut me down and shut me up. And, I'm still sort of fighting what happened. I had Houston Methodist Hospital come after me in a very public way. So I had privileges there, but very loosely. I'd never admitted a patient to their hospital. And I was actually collaborating with them with research. I was sharing my data with them because I was doing COVID testing as well. And they were going to help me get my data published. And when the shots came out, and Methodist was the first hospital in the country to mandate the COVID shots, and then they did it 5 months before Biden. And what I was seeing is that the shots weren't working, because I've seen all these patients coming in that were quote unquote vaccinated, and they were just as sick, if not sicker, and they outnumbered the unvaccinated. So I actually went to Methodist and said, hey, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And I got barely a response. They basically said, well, we think it's supposed to lower severity. So I started speaking out on social media. And at the time, I really didn't have much of a following. I had a few thousand followers. But what I said really, really made them mad. And I was actually a lot more conservative back then than the things I say now. But what I said, it was vaccine mandates are wrong. And I said it over and over again. And I gave examples of patients that had written to me and, the distress that they were having over these mandates. And, the hospital retaliated by suspending my privileges, but they did it in a very public manner. I found out that my privileges were suspended from a reporter at the Houston Chronicle who sent me a text message. So, and then they went on Twitter and they announced to everybody that I was spreading dangerous misinformation, harmful to the community. And, the story went viral and it changed my life. It basically stole my privacy. And they also reported me to the medical board, because my immediate reaction was resign from the hospital. So then they reported me to the medical board for resigning under quote unquote investigation. And that fight's still ongoing. I also had a patient who was hospitalized with COVID, whose wife was suing the hospital to allow the husband to get ivermectin, because they refused to let him get it. She was suing them. She brought me on as an expert witness. And I testified on his behalf, along with Senator Bob Hall. We both testified, and we won, and the hospital was supposed to grant me temporary privileges. There was a lot of rigmarole, a lot of back and forth, delays, and that sort of thing, but we finally got the green light. And then I send a nurse to the hospital to give him the ivermectin, and she's greeted by the cops and the hospital administrator. She doesn't barge into the ICU and give him ivermectin. She leaves, but the medical board is accusing me of basically trying to go in there and give him ivermectin. Mm-hmm. And I'm still fighting that. So, I've just seen so much, and then I've seen so many injuries from the COVID shots. I really strongly believe they need to be pulled off the market, because currently they're still recommending that all babies get 3 of those shots by the time they're 9 months old.
The initial news was that if you were 18 or under, the initial COVID wasn't going to impact that person.
Well, what I found is that early treatment worked very well. There was no need for a vaccine at all. I saw people that were really sick that turned around with treatment. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely no. They were giving them the children to protect grandma. That was their rationale, right? They knew that the COVID doesn't take down kids, right?
Right.
In very rare instances, but. they are vaccinating the children to protect the people with the higher risk population.
And then it didn't work anyway.
Right, and it didn't work. And, your personal health is not a team sport, right? This is, but yeah, there's just so much about the vaccine. And like I said, I think my highest priority right now is try to get these shots pulled off the market, because right now, an unknowing mother's taking her baby to the doctor and getting 3 of these shots. And I have just seen so many. It's unlike any other product on the market. I mean, I've been in practice for over 20 years. I've never seen anything like this, right? It's not the flu shot where, people get some issues. But this is like, I looked at my patients in the 2 years following the rollout of the shots, and 7% of my new patients were coming to see me for reactions. And these people are very hard to treat. They have neurological issues, they have cardiovascular issues, they have chronic fatigue, chronic pain, and they don't respond to treatment very well. And they're not getting help, they're not getting compensation. None of the people that I've seen were reported to the vaccine adverse event reporting system, or VAERS, like they should have been. That's sort of a requirement. So those of us who are seeing the injuries believe that the VAERS is way under reporting what's actually out there. But the shots, when they came out in the first month, there were 700 deaths, which under normal circumstances, that would have been enough to pull them off the market. Like other vaccines, other medications, if you'd seen that many deaths, they would have been automatically pulled off the market. And now we're, according to VAERS, I believe there are about 30-something thousand deaths reported to VAERS, but we know that's a gross underestimation.
All right. How can the medical association have any problems if this Ivermectin has been proven to work? I mean, why would they still be hanging on to that?
Because it interferes with the whole vaccine. So what it was an orchestrated attack, and I actually sued the FDA over this and won.
Right.
Because in March of 2021, the government was getting nervous because people were not, running to their doctor's office to get these shots. People were a little bit hesitant. There was, the Ivermectin was swirling around the grassroots. So they first put something on the FDA's website in March of 2021, saying how harmful Ivermectin could be, and then that the next month, Houston Methodist mandated the COVID shots, and they were the first in the country. And actually, on the same day that they mandated the COVID shots, the government implemented a $10 billion propaganda program called COVID-19 Community Corps. And that was $10 billion that was dispersed amongst 275 different groups. And it could be sports groups, civics groups, religious groups, healthcare groups, all to, get the public to get the COVID shots. Then in August of 2021, and this is during the third and the largest surge of the pandemic, it's 9 months after the COVID shots came out. Again, the government's really upset because people are not fully vaccinated the way they anticipated. So that's when they launched the horse tweet, where the healthcare woman nuzzling the horse and says, "You're not a horse, you're not a cow, seriously, y'all stop it." And right after that is when Biden mandated the COVID shots. So it's all very hand in hand. And right after that, they took away monoclonal antibodies. So they couldn't have they couldn't mandate the COVID shot if there was something like Ivermectin on the market and approved for use for COVID.
All right, I tell you what, let's take a quick break. Thanks, folks, to let us come on here every Saturday morning. We'll be right back.
Thank goodness for all the great sponsors we have here at News from Camp House. H-E-B Food Stores. That's Stephen Tice at H-E-B. He helps me. He helps the community. He's a great man. I'm so thankful H-E-B loosened him up, lets him go around and sponsor a few things. H-E-B's got all your food needs. It's the greatest food store we got here in Columbus. Thank goodness for H-E-B. First State Bank. You go over to the First State Bank, they'll take care of all your loans, all your deposits, your savings, anything you need. Bunch of great hometown people over there. You got Celia Tobias, John Pollock, everybody over there is looking out for you. Miss Barbara Barta. It's a great bunch of folks at the First State Bank is also sponsoring News from the Camp House. First State Bank takes care of all my business. Baumgart Agency, Susan Baumgart at the Baumgart Agencies, her and Germania. She told me to plug Germania. Germania is an insurance that she likes to everybody to know about. The Baumgart Agencies. Miss Susan and I are classmates, being classmates. She got me out of high school, sat right beside her, put us in alphabetical order where I could copy. And Susan Baumgart over at the Baumgart Agency taking care of all your insurance needs. Lyco Realty, one of the original sponsors of News from the Camp House. Lyco Realty, the oldest real estate company in the county, and for the last 3 years voted the favorite realtor in the county. Lyco Realty, that's Miss Kimberly Johnson, that's Crockett's granddaughter. More kinfolks and classmates and great people from Colorado County. People from Colorado County helping people from Colorado County. That's great. Oh, thank goodness for all these wonderful people come to me want to be sponsors for News from the Camp House.
Good morning and welcome to the second half of this week's News from the Camp House. It's Herman Brune. We're here with Dr. Mary Bowden down here in Houston. We're trying to clean up some of the ideas about the COVID mess, the pandemic. What we have always said, the tragedy is we didn't learn anything. Dr. Bowden is in the middle of it. She's in the heat of it. She's one of the first doctors to treat people. And she is giving us her testimony on how all this went down. Now, there's been a lot of other stuff going on since COVID, since the end of it. They've won, there's a Liberty Council that is at work trying to win cases for people. The Liberty Council won a $10 million suit in Illinois for healthcare workers. You familiar with this? Okay, so you know all about this. Where there was 473 employees who are eligible for compensation in a class action suit in Illinois. I think since all this has happened, Texas has passed a statute that eliminates these mandates. Your employer, your hospital, nobody can mandate that everybody has to be vaccinated. Texas has passed that. I think when Biden was doing it initially, passing the mandates, those mandates were actually illegal by federal law in Title VII. I think that he wasn't even supposed to be able to do it. But now here we are. We're sitting here today, and we're still talking about whether or not hydroxychloroquine and Ivermectin work, and and that the vaccines they didn't work right. They didn't stop people from getting it. They didn't stop people from transmitting it, and that the vaccines have some health issues that we're worried about the side effects. People are coming in with problems, and these doctors see that, and the people who have the problems are coming to the doctors who treated people initially.
Right, and going forward, it's really important because there were 12 medical freedom bills in last year's legislation that in majority of those did not pass. But there is some fresh blood coming into the State House, and one of those new representatives, Representative Wes Virdell, is going to draft a bill that's going to ban the sale and distribution of mRNA in the state of Texas. Okay. So things like that, we could make Ivermectin over the counter in Texas. I mean, it is super safe. That would, I still have a hard time getting my patients Ivermectin. I can't send a prescription to Walgreens or CVS or HEB or Kroger. None of them will fill it unless it's, FDA for its FDA approved use for like parasites or scabies. So if they suspect you're prescribing it for COVID and they will ask you for a code, then they will just flat out refuse to fill it. So I have to find, compounding pharmacies which is not, I can do that, but they're often not open on weekends and they don't take insurance. And so it's still a problem.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but initially, I don't know where it is now. Someone, I swear, it's because time goes by and I forget. When a person bought a bottle of Ivermectin, it said to prevent coronaviruses on the box. I thought I remembered that, back when we were vaccinating and, we were working cattle. Oh. And the first time that I ever heard this was from Dr. Rodney Sturtevant, and he absolutely, drilled it into me. Yes, Ivermectin works. And I said, well, I will never catch anything because I've been so drenched with the pour-on variety of it. I said that, there's no way I'll ever catch anything. And so here we sit, and we're trying to overcome the tragedy of people not getting the good information.
Yeah, and what I'll say, one of the biggest things I learned during the pandemic is that you can treat viruses and early treatment is better. So there's all this talk about pneumonia running around, and I believe pneumonia is a result of an upper respiratory tract infection that doesn't get adequately treated.
Right.
And so
you're
right, exactly. And
right.
I would encourage, there's amongst the medical professionals, there's this fear, okay, if we overprescribe or antibiotics, then we're going to lead to antibiotic resistance. So that is pounded into us during training. So we are trained to wait. So we're trained, don't treat, give it a week, and then if it gets worse, then treat. Well, my view on that has shifted since COVID, and now I recommend, maybe not the first or second day get treatment, but, don't wait until, especially if you're higher risk, don't wait for it to settle into your lungs. Get treatment early. And another thing that would have been very helpful for people to have during the pandemic is a nebulizer at home, because if you were able to do breathing treatments at home during the pandemic, that could have made a tremendous difference. And what happened is there was it was hard to get these nebulizer machines, but most people, you can order them online now. And so if you are higher risk, having one of those at your house could be very beneficial if you do get into a situation where you can't get medical treatment and you're having trouble in your lungs.
It's like we were talking earlier, and like I said, so much of this, what you just said, you get sick, you get a cold, it turns into pneumonia. This is something we grew up hearing. All right, viruses. I have long argued that this entire pandemic situation was something that we learned about in 10th grade biology, how viruses work. And that when I initially interviewed frontline doctors, and I said, this is something we've never seen before. And they said, oh, hell no, it's a virus. You know how viruses work. And I went, oh, okay. Yeah, I do. And they took away the natural immunity. They took away everything and shoved these vaccines down our throat. But now, you said earlier that you won a case with the FDA. Do you want to explain that a little bit, please?
Right. So we sued them for spreading misinformation. So
right.
their role, and for basically interfering with the doctor-patient relationship, because their role is to approve medications and move on. They're not supposed to tell the public how to use those medications. And what they were doing was telling the public, don't take ivermectin for COVID. Well, they crossed a line by doing that. And so we basically put them back in their place. They had to remove the misinformation from social media. We didn't get the apology that we deserved, but they did remove it. So
well, there's a lot of people didn't get the apologies they deserved. Yes, there's millions of people that didn't get the apologies they deserved. Okay, now is this the Texas Medical Association that you're having problems with?
Well, it's the Texas Medical Board. So,
okay.
Yeah, so it's the one that controls my license.
Right.
And they offered to make this all go away if I paid them $5,000 and took 8 hours of CME and retook the jurisprudence exam, which is a medical legal exam we all have to take. And I just refused. And so I'm taking it to the next level. But unfortunately, this next level has been just a saga because They've asked for 3 continuances, and they've been granted. Their latest move was to file a motion for partial summary judgment on the Methodist situation. So they want the judge to decide on the situation with Methodist without allowing me to have a hearing. And they filed that right before Thanksgiving.
All right. None of this is affected by what was passed in the last session.
No, the last session, basically makes it illegal to mandate the COVID shot. But there's more work that needs to be done. There were a lot of other bills that should have gotten more attention that didn't. The common thought is that Dustin Burrows was responsible for letting all those medical freedom bills just sit there and not get scheduled for a hearing because he was in charge of the calendars committee.
Okay, yes, this is the same ongoing saga we got going on in the Texas House right now between Burrows and Cook now that Phelan has stepped down from his speaker race. And Cook has won the caucus, and Burrows is trying to still overturn the apple cart. But according to the caucus rules, those Republican members who follow Burrows, if they don't vote according to the caucus in January, they're out. They will not, according to caucus rules, the way I read, they will not be able to run in 2026. They'll be out. Okay, so anyway, this is turned immediately. Here we're talking politics, and that's what I'm looking at. The Texas Medical Board. This politics. It's nothing to do with health care. It's politics.
It has nothing to do with patient safety. I didn't have patients turning me into the medical board. It had, I stepped on the toes of 2 big hospitals, and I refused to back down. They expected me to fold. They expected to silence me, and I've gotten very loud. And now, they don't know how to save face, so they're just going to keep going after me. But I'm not backing down, and I'll take this as far as it needs to go.
All right. Well, thank you for being with us this morning, visiting with my listeners.
Thanks for having me, Herman.
All right, folks, I hope you got something out of that this morning and understand a little bit more about what's been going on, kind of overcome the tragedy just a little bit. So this weekend's edition was also brought to us by the Shaw's Bend Social Club, country club for folks who don't have a country club. Now, everybody go out, have a big weekend, enjoy yourself, have fun, be safe, and y'all just remember, pretty much any day is sure a good day to be out in the woods.